My talk today is going to take us through the whole issue of identity and opportunity. I'm hoping to cover off a few things in terms of us being able to get there. But first and foremost, I need to do some honoring of the land. We are on colonized territory. This land belongs to the Mississaugas of New Credit First Nation. And I think it's very important that we give honor and give thanks to that group for allowing us to be here. So chi miigwech. Hoping to cover the following topics in terms of covering information for you. We're going to take a look at some of the issues around identity, some of the politics of identity. We're going to take you through 3 steps that I think you need to utilize in order to be able to find opportunities within your identities. I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story of myself, show you some of the opportunities I've garnered by using my identity, and then give you something that you can take away in terms of how to read the newspaper. Y'all read the newspaper anymore? You know that thing, right? It's that one that opens up big, yeah, anyways. So first and foremost, the whole idea of identity is very, very complicated. Identity politics are loaded with so much. Just think of who you are and what stories you have to tell that bring you into this space today. But add to that some other things. What I did as I was preparing for this, I talked to some people. I asked some people for some input. And there was a really difficult time for me to get up here and talk about the positives of identity, the ability to be able to go out and find opportunities using your identity without first checking in with some of the issues relating to identity. Things like tokenism, non-acceptance, things like not being welcomed in an environment, not being paid equally. So these are all real important things for people in terms of the way in which identity works or doesn't work for them. Things like missed opportunities, being sexually harassed or being treated in a sexist way in the environment. Again, the human rights advisor in me is coming through in terms of who are the folks you're interacting with. Folks feeling overall lacking some confidence in being worthless based on what they're presenting because their ideas are not being heard. They're feeling silenced. They're being pushed to the side. Something they may have said is being said by somebody else, and when they were told, oh, maybe not, the other person is being told, oh, great, that's a wonderful idea. And these folks are also being stuck with the language of fit. How many of you have ever heard that language? Fit for this position, fit for this environment. We have to think about that language. The word fit is loaded. It comes from a space of, again, a lot of the folks in this survey that I spoke with were either females, they were racialized peoples. So when we're talking to those groups, fit means you don't look like somebody that's in the space. When we're doing hiring, folks like to hire people that are like themselves. If we use the language of fit and don't take into consideration all that is that person that makes them up, something's being lost, and organizations are not benefiting from that. So I wanted to lay some of the groundwork in terms of some of the negatives. I realized that, TED Talks are always rah, rah, rah. Well, I had to give you some raw before I got to raw. So now let's move on to some of the raw stuff. So I'm going to give you 3 steps of thinking about how to use your identity for opportunity. And those 3 steps are acceptance, communication, and thankfulness. Under acceptance, we're looking at things like accept yourselves, be yourselves. We're not asking you to bring your identity in a bag and then when you arrive to check certain pieces at the door. We want you to bring your full person into the spaces that you're in. When we're looking at building inclusive environments, that's what we're talking about. Bring your whole self, bring that lived experience. Bring those, because let's look at it from this point of view. We know that Toronto has a large population of folks that have been in this country 5 years or less. I think the last statistics was about 51% of the country, or of the city, has been in Canada 5 years or less. Think of that in terms of the experience that people are bringing with them that's not being utilized. So that's one part of it. Communication is next. We are working in an environment where we have 4 generations of individuals working in our workspaces. And I'm hearing, we're trending on Twitter. I was standing over there saying, exactly what is that? Because again, a lot of you folks have the ability and you have the social media skills and the savvy to be able to connect with each other. But remember, there are going to be folks that still like you to actually make a phone call and say hi once in a while. Sending that email may not be there. So communication is really, really important. If we look at it from a diversity point of view, we've got, in Canada, we live in what we call the mosaic. We're not the melting pot like the US. We have groups of people that live together in certain spaces, and they stay and they mingle within those groups. The one thing that we have as an ability to be able to get information and to learn is the ability to communicate. So we need to make sure that we're crossing those barriers, crossing those boundaries, and asking those questions to get information. Lastly, thankfulness. I think we're really losing out on this one. We're caught up in a word, Janice Ford Kirk coined this phrase a while ago, it's perplexity. We're caught up in a time where things are happening so fast, rapid and complex change, that we forget that being thankful for something is really important. Going back to someone that has just surprised you with a piece of information or has helped you understand a particular tool or an item. Because let's think about it. A lot of technology is changing so quickly, by the time you figured it out today, someone's already figured out how to change it tomorrow. And now you're back at the drawing board. For those of us that are somewhat technophobic, I'll admit it, I am. It's a case of, by the time I learned it a year from now, it's already been gone. And so we have to think about how we can actually get at each other and share information. Being thankful comes back to when I learn from you, because I do learn from you. I ask all of my students that work with me, help me understand this, because I'm stuck. Sid will tell you as well, I go to him a lot around how do I make connections with students. This is the way in which we work, and then we have to say thank you for that. So moving forward, who am I? I'm a 7th generation Canadian. I'm Indigenous Black Nova Scotian. I'm Mi'kmaq, Dutch, Acadian, second youngest of 11, the only one in my family to go on to post-secondary institution and complete a degree or two. So I'm in a same-gender loving relationship, and I'm the father of 2 beautiful boys. Again, this is a bit about my story. I didn't check the identity at the door. It's all here with me. This is what it is. I'm going to tell you about opportunities that I gained from that in 2 ways. You can do this too. Be thinking about this. Personal and skill-based. From a personal point of view, I looked at my Aboriginal nature as I was discovering my history of my family, because this wasn't something I grew up with. I started looking at how can I learn more, and I connected to communities. And one of those communities was a moose factory. Now, if you can see on the map here, it shows you Moose Factory is on the tip of the James Bay. It was a community that I went to work with some Aboriginal youth in. I flew into Timmins, got on this little Mosquito. They call it a plane. I still don't know where it came from. It held 3, 4 seats in it. So we're flying into Moosonee. We're landing on ice. Now, I'm a city boy, okay? A vacation for me, if we're going camping, is a Holiday Inn. I'm flying into this community, landing on ice in this little thing that's bobbing like this, and I think, okay, I can do this. I'm here now. So here I am, I'm in Moosonee. The person who I'm going to be working with comes to pick me up. I jump in his half-ton truck, and imagine my surprise when he decides to drive down the side of an embankment onto this road. This is an ice road. It's 18 inches thick. We're driving, it's 8 kilometers long that connects Moose Factory, which is a little island, from Moosonee. I'm driving across this ice, and there's a snowplow coming toward us. The ice is doing this. There's holes cut in the ice where the water is splashing through. Now, again, I'm a city boy. I'm used to having my feet on the ground. This was daunting for me. But then I go and I meet with the kids that I'm working with, and we had an amazing 20 days. If you can call a warm day of minus 24 a good day. The ice was like this even on the streets. The wind was so strong, I could stand still and be blown down the street. It was great. So that was a personal experience. Now, from a professional point of view, or skill-based, I had been working with a government program. My job was coming to an end. It was a contract. I decided, okay, I need to find something else to do. So I looked into my little bag of tricks, and I figured, okay, I'm a career development practitioner at this time. I've got some knowledge of how to find work, and I got some knowledge of how to make decisions. I looked at who was in my roster. And one of the folks in my roster, one of the employers I had been working with, was an immigration law firm. So I decided, okay, I'm going to try something here. Put together a proposal, and I went to the owner of the firm, and I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to work together, and you've got, what, roughly 300 people coming into the country each year. When they get to Canada, they arrive in Toronto for the most part, they get at the airport, and what happens? I got them that far, the rest is up to them. So imagine, these folks are arriving at the airport. Wow, this is Toronto. So I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to help those folks when they reach here. You're going to send me overseas to where these folks are coming from, so when they're ready to come to Canada, I can help prepare them. We can do resume writing, job search techniques. I'll even help them with settlement. I went to the government, I got all the application forms that you would need. So when folks hit Canada, they hit the ground running. So in 11 months that I worked for this firm, this image right here shows you some of the places I visited. So I was in Qatar, I went to Bahrain, Dubai, Karachi. Again, this was one of those opportunities I created for myself. You can do this too. Here's how. Y'all like reading the newspaper? I asked you that before. Let's come back to it. How many of you read the newspaper and look for opportunities? This is where I think a lot of people are missing the boat. Job search has become a reactive process. Go online, send off resumes, hope. Call somebody up, hear the message, we're not hiring. Go to our website. What I'm suggesting is you read the newspaper differently. Take a look at an article that's in the paper. Take a look at a story that's popular and just examine it from the point of view of what's in there. I mentioned an idea here. The UN calls Canada and other nations to boost aid for family planning. As I read through that article, it was amazing how much information there was in there. This article talked about helping people plan their families, helping them get access to information, putting money from the government into resourcing this activity, very much about helping people be able to create stronger, solid family bases. So I looked at, okay, what are the opportunities here? Well, first off, in this article in particular, there are 6 people mentioned that extend your network. So right now, I want you to think about the person sitting next to you is probably someone you know, but how well do you really know that person? Because networking is relationship building. It's vital to your being able to find success, whether that's a job, whether that's you're creating your own activity or career, whether it's a way of being able to connect to others. Networking is real. And my statement to you is this: somebody in this room knows somebody that you need to know. So if you haven't started to network and find out who are the people here and who are the people around you, it's one of those things I think you need to do. Newspaper articles have a standard practice where they mention at least 3 particular individuals they have to cite in terms of fact-finding. Right away, you're starting your networking. There's 3 individuals that you can contact to find out information, to find out about what do I need to do differently. In the article, you can read through it in terms of what are the skills that you have and what can be done to assist this particular situation. This one in particular has a need for lobbyists for the government to get the money spent, has a need for medical staff medical staff, nursing staff, community development staff. There's needs for folks to do education. All of those of you with second language skills or English as an alternative language skills. Here's opportunities for you in terms of being able to help people understand the way in which something can be done. We have a tendency of thinking we produce everything in English. Well, we know that, for example, at Ryerson, we have 118 languages spoken on a daily basis. Is there not an opportunity somewhere in there to present some information differently? So again, start thinking about how you can expand the nature of what it is you're trying to do, because then you'll be able to make the right kind of connections. I'm going to wrap up with these 3 points. Focus on how I can help you, not what can you do for me or what jobs are available. Too often when we're networking, one of the things that we do as a problem is we go to folks and say, what do you got for me? What can you do to help me? I want you to offer something to them. I want you to say, what are the challenges you're experiencing? And look at ways that you can fill those gaps. Secondly, volunteer. Give something back to the community. Give something back in terms of great returns will come to you in terms of go to community groups. Go and find places where there's a need. And don't always look to get something back, because if you start lending yourself and start sharing your knowledge, people will remember you. And you will be certain to see how many people will come following you to find out where you are next. Lastly, join boards, join associations, join community interest groups. If you're a parent, join your Parent Teachers Association. Okay, these are spaces and places where there's a lot of interaction, there's a lot of information to be shared. Always go with the idea of being able to gather those next pieces of info. You've got 2 ears, 1 mouth. In this process, you want to make sure that you're listening twice as much as you're talking. I find a lot of folks forget that they're wanting something and they tend to ramble on and talk about themselves. Don't leave room for the individual that they're talking to get that information to them. Take your time, get the information from the person that you want, it's really important that you, again, look at ways that you can be communicating with folks differently. Now that I've got you thinking about opportunities within yourselves, now that I've got you thinking about your identities, do these 3 steps: accept, communicate, and be thankful. Thanks.